Imagine, what if the greatest threat to humanity was also its only salvation? It started with a signal, faint, fractured, ancient. For centuries, humanity had searched the stars, yearning for proof that we were not alone. Our greatest minds built vast radio arrays, scoured distant planets and launched probes into the void, hoping for a whisper, an echo, anything. Some dreamed of discovering allies among the stars, advanced civilizations that could share their wisdom. Others feared the opposite, that whatever lurked beyond our cosmic horizon might be something far older, far hungrier than we could comprehend. But in the end, we didn't find them. They found us. The transmission was first detected by an autonomous listening post on the edge of the Kuiper Belt. The data it gathered made no sense. Unlike any known radio wave or pulsar burst, it was neither random nor structured. It wasn't a message, nor was it mere background noise. It was something else entirely. It was a pulse, a slow, deliberate thrum, as if something massive, something beyond human understanding, was breathing. A heartbeat, a warning. At first, the discovery was classified. The United Earth Council, UEC, deemed it a cosmic anomaly, another strange but meaningless phenomenon in an infinite universe. But as days passed, the pulse changed. It adapted. It grew in strength, shifting frequencies as if responding to something. To us, then, it stopped. And 3 days later, the sky tore open. A rupture appeared at the edge of the Andromeda expanse, an impossible wound in space-time itself. What emerged from that rift defied every known law of physics. A fleet of Leviathan constructs, their surfaces shifting like liquid darkness, moved through the void with terrifying precision. They made no demands, no declarations of war. They simply advanced. The first planet they reached, Erebus Prime, a thriving human colony, was erased from existence within hours. No distress calls, no survivors, just silence. Panic swept through the galactic frontier. Humanity had faced wars before, battles against rebel factions, rogue AIs, even skirmishes with other sentient species. But this was different. This wasn't war. This was extinction. They called them the Scourge. Nothing could stop them. The UEC's greatest battleships were reduced to drifting wrecks within minutes. Entire defense fleets vanished in the darkness, their ships torn apart by weapons beyond comprehension. Planets burned. Billions died. Within weeks, the Scourge had advanced toward the Sol system itself. Humanity's homeworld stood on the brink of annihilation. Desperate, the UEC scoured every possible solution. Forbidden weapons were considered. Doomsday contingencies were enacted. None of it mattered. The Scourge were inevitable. And then, buried beneath the chaos, someone noticed something impossible. The signal, the ancient pulse, was active again, but this time, it wasn't coming from deep space. It was coming from a dead world, an uncharted planet located far beyond known space, a world where no human had ever set foot. The signal was stronger now, urgent, calling to us. With no other options left, a last-ditch mission was approved. A small expedition, rogue scientists, mercenaries, and a few of the UEC's most desperate war heroes boarded the Black Dagger, the last operational stealth frigate in the fleet. Their orders? To find the source of the signal, to uncover whatever. Ancient power lay hidden beneath that forgotten world. No one knew what they would find. No guarantees they would return. But as their ship descended through the choking storm of the dead planet's atmosphere, they saw it. A structure, larger than a city, embedded in the surface like the fossilized bones of a god. Buried beneath the planet's surface, which in the ruins of a forgotten civilization was a weapon, not just any weapon, a construct of unfathomable power, ancient beyond reckoning. It was old, it was dormant, but it was waking. And the Scourge, they were coming. Before we jump into this epic tale, subscribe to XenoChronicles for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight. Would this weapon be humanity's salvation or its doom? One thing was certain. The countdown had begun. The planet was a graveyard. As the black dagger descended through the roiling, storm-choked atmosphere, the crew braced themselves against the violent turbulence. The ship's reinforced hull groaned under the stress, sensors flickering wildly, as the atmosphere distorted reality itself. The planet was unlike anything recorded in galactic charts. It had no official name, no history, just a string of meaningless numbers assigned to a world long forgotten. The moment they breached the cloud cover, the crew understood why. The surface was a wasteland. A blackened husk of jagged ruins and monolithic wreckage stretched endlessly beneath them. Whatever civilization had once thrived here had been obliterated, erased by a force so absolute that not even time had been allowed to heal its wounds. Cyclonic storms of dust and ash swallowed entire mountain ranges, lightning flickered in the poisoned sky, and rivers of molten rock carved burning scars across the tortured land. And yet, the signal was stronger than ever. It wasn't just a transmission, it was a presence. Commander Elias Rourke, the leader of this desperate mission, stood at the helm of the Black Dagger, watching the planet unfold before him. A hardened war veteran, Rourke had seen the worst of humanity's wars, but this was different. This world was wrong. It felt ancient in a way no human mind could truly grasp, as if the ground itself had been watching for eons. "Are you seeing this?" whispered Dr. Selene Varos, the expedition's lead xenolinguist, and one of the last remaining experts on lost civilizations. Her voice was barely audible over the ship's rumbling engines. "It's not just ruins, it's something else." Rourke glanced at her. "Explain." She hesitated, scanning the endless horizon of skeletal structures and collapsed spires. "This level of devastation, it's not natural. This isn't erosion or decay, this is deliberate. Something wanted to make sure nothing survived." A chill settled over the bridge. Then the ship's AI vector spoke. "Commander," the synthetic voice intoned, its tone edged with something that almost resembled unease. "You're going to want to see this." A holomap flickered into existence before them, displaying a three-dimensional representation of the terrain below. At first, it was just a mess of jagged landscapes and ruined structures, but then the AI adjusted the parameters, removing the top layers of debris, filtering out the interference. A shape emerged. It was massive, larger than any city on Earth. A geometric construct buried beneath the planet's surface, concealed for what could have been millions of years. It was not a ruin. It was intentional. It was a fortress. No, something more. Something worse. A prison. And it was waking up. The pulse they had been tracking emanated from deep within its structure. Whatever lay beneath them was not just sending out a signal, it was calling to them. A warning, or an invitation. They had no choice. With slow, deliberate maneuvers, the Black Dagger descended toward the surface, its landing thrusters kicking up clouds of dust and ancient debris. The second the landing gear made contact, the silence was deafening. Even through their helmets, the crew could feel the weight of the air, thick, oppressive, filled with the static hum of something immeasurably old. The team disembarked, their boots sinking slightly into the ashen ground. Rourke, flanked by Dr. Varos and a squad of battle-hardened Marines, led the way toward the closest structure. It was a vast archway, impossibly smooth despite its obvious age, its surface inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer when viewed from different angles. Varos approached, running a gloved hand over the strange etchings. "These symbols," she murmured, her breath catching. "You recognize them?" Rourke asked. "No." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "But they recognize us." Before he could respond, the ground trembled. A deep, guttural hum resonated from beneath their feet, sending vibrations through the earth. The fortress was no longer dormant. It had sensed them. Then, without warning, the gate opened. A blinding cascade of unnatural light erupted from the archway as the structure groaned to life, ancient mechanisms grinding against time itself. The air turned electric, the temperature plummeting in an instant. And from the depths of the ruin, something moved. The Marines raised their weapons, tension thick enough to strangle. Shadows twisted within the light, and then a voice. No words, no language, just a raw, unfiltered presence that clawed its way into their minds, overwhelming. Their senses were the message older than stars. A single truth: you are not worthy. The light collapsed. The earth exploded. A force unlike anything Rourke had ever experienced hurled them backward, shockwaves rippling through the surface. The fortress rejected them, and in the distance, in the poisoned sky above, the Scourge had arrived. Their descent was silent, a fleet of shadowed constructs hovering just beyond the atmosphere, watching, waiting. The crew had triggered something, and the war for humanity's survival had just begun. The world was tearing itself apart. The fortress had rejected them. The Scourge had arrived, and somewhere beneath their feet, an ancient force was awakening. Rourke staggered to his feet, ears ringing from the explosion. His visor display flickered erratically as his suit's systems recalibrated. Around him the others were recovering, Dr. Varos coughing as she pulled herself up, the Marines scanning the dust-choked air for threats. Threats were everywhere. The storm above had changed. The Scourge fleet, those obsidian leviathans, hovered in the stratosphere like silent sentinels. They did not attack, not yet, but their presence was a declaration. They were here to claim whatever lay beneath the surface, and they would kill anyone who stood in their way. "Commander." One of the Marines, Sergeant Dax, pointed toward the ruins ahead. The fortress, no, the prison, was no longer dormant. The explosion had torn open sections of its structure, revealing cyclopean corridors stretching into the abyss below. Faint, blue light pulsed from the exposed interior, as if the structure itself had veins of energy, now beginning to flow again. The message still rang in their skulls. "You are not worthy." Rourke clenched his jaw. "We go in." Varos hesitated. "Did you hear what it said? It doesn't want us here." Rourke shot a glance at the sky. Neither do they. There was no more time to argue. The team moved into the ruins, passing through the shattered remains of the colossal gateway. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was heavy, pressurized, charged with something unseen yet felt. Every step echoed unnaturally, as if the space around them wasn't quite real. The walls pulsed faintly, smooth metal that wasn't metal at all, something organic, something old. The symbols that had once shimmered on the outer archway now covered every surface, shifting as they moved, rearranging as if they were observing, reacting. Varos stopped, her breath shallow. "These symbols, they're learning us. What does that mean?" Dax asked, gripping his rifle. Before she could answer, the corridor moved. Not an earthquake, not a structural collapse. The entire space shifted, as if the walls themselves were rearranging. Shapes and passageways folded, restructured, adapted to their presence. "They're testing us," Varos realized, eyes widening. Rourke stepped forward. "Then let's pass the damn test." The corridor ended in a vast chamber, a throne room, a control center. It was impossible to tell. Towering monoliths stood in circular formations, each one humming with unreadable power. At the room's center lay an altar, a construct of dark material that pulsed like a slumbering heart. Then it spoke, not in words, but in sensation. A wave of pressure rolled over them, vibrating in their bones, flooding their minds with half-formed images, memories not their own. A war, a civilization, ancient beyond comprehension, battling an enemy of pure entropy. The Scourge, not invaders, but an infection, a force that consumed and rewrote reality itself. The civilization had forged a weapon, not a ship, not a bomb. Something more, a being, a construct of impossible power, a guardian, a titan. But something had gone wrong. The weapon had turned on its creators. It was too powerful, too dangerous. They could not control it. So they sealed it away, buried it here, beneath an uncharted world, behind locks and trials that only the worthy could pass. Not as a treasure to be claimed, but as a last resort. The vision faded. The room was silent. Then the walls screamed. A howl of grinding metal and burning light erupted from the chamber as the fortress itself came alive. The Scourge were here, shadowed figures, wreathed in writhing, shifting darkness, poured into the ruins. They did not walk, they flowed, moving with an unnatural grace, their forms contorting as if reality itself struggled to define them. The Marines opened fire. Bright streaks of plasma rounds lanced through the air, but the Scourge moved through them, shifting like liquid, reforming before the shots could take effect. Rourke turned to the altar, heart pounding. The weapon, the Guardian, it was still, dormant. They had to wake it. But how Varos was already moving, frantically scanning the monoliths. There has to be a trigger, some kind of... The ground fractured. A Scourge warrior lunged, its form stretching like living smoke, claws forming out of nothingness. It struck and was obliterated. A shockwave of blue energy burst from the altar, tearing through the chamber like a tidal wave. The Scourge recoiled, their bodies disassembling at the mere touch of its light. Then the altar opened. A figure rose, towering, silent, built not of flesh but of something else, a being of obsidian and burning gold, its form shifting like a storm. Contained within armor, its eyes ignited, twin suns in the darkness, and when it spoke the fortress trembled. The war is not over. The Guardian had awoken, and the battle for existence had begun. The Guardian stood motionless for a single eternal moment. Its presence was overwhelming, a silent storm caged in a body of impossible design. A construct forged not of metal nor flesh, but something older, something beyond human comprehension. And then it moved, a single step, yet it sent a shockwave rippling through the chamber. The walls of the fortress groaned, monolithic structures bending in response. The Scourge, creatures of endless hunger and unmaking, recoiled. For the first time they hesitated. But hesitation was not retreat. A piercing, inhuman shriek erupted. From the lead entity. The sound was wrong, as if existence itself rejected it. The shadows surged. Rourke barely had time to register what was happening before the wave of darkness descended. The Scourge did not fight like living beings. They did not attack with weapons or tactics. They consumed. The first Marine was erased before he could scream. Not torn apart, not killed, unmade, as if he had never been there at all. Dax fired into the mass. "We need to move now." But the Scourge did not stop. Rourke turned to the Guardian. "Fight!" It did not answer. It did not need to. The air itself fractured. The Guardian lifted an arm and the space around it bent. The glow of its eyes intensified, shifting from molten gold to a blinding white. Energy surged through its form, crackling arcs of contained power. Then, obliteration. A single pulse erupted from the being's core, not an explosion, not a weapon, a command. Reality obeyed. The Scourge did not die. They ceased. The wave of darkness unraveled, shadows peeling away like ash in the wind. The chamber's walls trembled as the remaining Scourge recoiled, retreating into the corridors, their impossible forms flickering between dimensions. The Guardian turned its gaze toward Rourke and his team. "This war began before your kind crawled from the dirt." Its voice was not sound, but something deeper, something felt in the marrow of their bones. Varos swallowed. You were designed to stop them." The Guardian's head tilted slightly, as if considering her words. "I was designed to end them." It stepped forward. Where its foot touched the ground, the floor reformed. "The Creators sealed me away. They feared what I would become." Rourke tightened his grip on his rifle. "And what did you become?" The Guardian regarded him. The air around it hummed. And in an instant, Rourke felt a fragment of the past. A war spanning across galaxies, entire civilizations consumed, and a weapon too powerful, too uncontrollable. The Creators had not merely locked it away. They had tried to destroy it, and failed. The vision faded. The Guardian remained. I was their salvation. A pause, and their mistake. The Scourge were not gone. They had merely withdrawn, regrouping. The fortress trembled as the remaining. Creatures coalesced, gathering at the structure's perimeter, and above the sky had changed. The fleet, those colossal obsidian vessels, was no longer idle. They had seen what had awakened. They would not allow it to exist. Rourke turned to his team. "We need to get out of here." "No," Varos whispered, eyes locked onto the Guardian. "It's not us they're after anymore." And then the fortress opened. Walls that had once been a prison shifted. Pillars of light erupted from the ruins, spiraling into the heavens. The ancient construct was no longer a tomb, it was a weapon. The Guardian lifted its arms, and the very fabric of space around them warped. The pressure in the air became unbearable, a gravity that pulled at the edges of existence itself. The EI Scourge fleet fired. A cascade of energy lances descended, each one capable of annihilating a continent. The Guardian did not flinch. It raised a hand and caught the first blast. Not with a shield, not with technology, with will. The energy curled around it, stripped apart at a molecular level, consumed and converted. The Guardian's form shifted. Its body, once a dark construct of ancient metal, now radiated a glow unlike anything the human mind could comprehend. It was no longer a relic. It was a force, and it struck back. A single motion, so fast it could not be perceived, sent a wave through the sky. Not a weapon, not a beam, an erasure. The Scourge ships collapsed inward, their existence revoked. What had once been towering war machines simply ceased. And yet the Guardian did not stop. The fortress was breaking apart, the power surging through. It was no longer contained. The structure, this planet, was not meant to hold such a force for long. Rourke felt the pressure in his skull, the weight of something far greater than humanity's understanding pressing against his mind. The Guardian turned to him. "This war is not yours to fight." It extended a hand. The air folded around them, and they were gone. Rourke blinked. The team stood in the wreckage of their landing site. The fortress was no longer visible, only a crater where it had once been. The sky above was empty. No fleet, no Guardian, nothing. Dax exhaled. "Did we win?" Varos shook her head. "I don't think we were ever players in this war." Silence. Then, the ground trembled, not from below, not from within, from beyond. Rourke turned his gaze skyward. The stars themselves seemed to be shifting, realigning. Something out there, something vast, had noticed. The war was not over, and something was coming. What do you think? What was the Guardian's true nature? And has humanity just unleashed something far worse? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to XenoChronicles for more epic sci-fi mysteries. Until next time, stay vigilant.